Hey there, are you afraid of what's going to happen if you don't win the grant? Or are you feeling all of this pressure, like the weight of the organization is literally on your shoulders to fund it? If that is the case and it's feeling like a debilitating pressure, I want to talk about it. And I'm going to be giving you my top 6 tips for how to manage that pressure. All right, with that, let's hit it. First off, nobody bats 100%, and if they tell you they do, they're either lying or they probably really haven't written that many grants, right? So let's just be real about it. Nobody does. You're dealing in a sport that has odds. Not all proposals are funded. I remember the very first, hard federal grant I ever did. It was an Indian Community Development Block grant for the native village of Eklutna to fund a clinic. It was a $600,000 proposal. It was my first time working with the tribe, my first federal grant, and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have any exposure to infrastructure projects at the time. It was all new. And so what ended up happening was I got the proposal in, I worked my little tushy off, and then I was kind of low-key anxious until I was going to hear back. And I thought, if that proposal comes back and it wasn't successful, I am going to have to quit my job because they're going to know I was a fraud. I don't know what I was doing. How I landed this job in the first place is kind of a miracle. I used, the informational interviews and the little bit of experience I'd been freelancing to land it. But let's be real, they could have found someone with more experience. And this specific opportunity had come from the CEO of the company asking me to help with it. So I felt a lot of pressure. So I know that feeling when you think, literally, I just have to quit. They're gonna know I don't know what I'm doing. Blah 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 blah. Right? So that's a legit fear. I want you to know I see you, hear you on that. Now let's talk about how you deal with it. Number 1, develop a funding strategy roadmap. I know I'm kind of a broken record on this topic, but it's because it works and it's so important. You can't write a grant application and not be able to show the picture of how the rest of the project's going to get funded if that one grant isn't covering it alone. And even if that one grant can, it's so much more important to be able to show how the program is diversified and getting support from other funders that even if it does, you still want to be able to understand how does it fit into the context of all of the other pursuits you are prioritizing over the next 12 to 18 months. I'll link below a really cool training we did with Instrumental, the grant database that we recommend, and you can see our methodology behind the grant research funnel that we also teach within the Grant Writing Unicorn Collective so you can get a handle on what the heck I'm talking about. Okay, tip number 2, build relationships with funders. This is one of the most valuable and important things that you can do. I know as grant writers, we like the work. We like being behind the scenes, behind the computer, cranking out. Maybe you love writing and that relationship building part isn't as fun to you. I get it. That's why you didn't choose necessarily the fundraising route. Traditional fundraisers, you can also go search what's the difference between fundraisers and grant writers. We have a good blog post about that on our website. But there really is a difference. And fundraisers are much more enriched or entrenched in relationship building. Whereas, it can feel like grant writing is back of the house. But it's not entirely. It's really, really important that you do build those relationships and understand what they want so that you're putting together a grant proposal that's the best it can be. And I have 2 things I want to point out about that. So presume you've read this bad boy, my book, How to Write a Grant, Become a Grant Writing Unicorn. So go to, I think it's chapter 10. Yeah, what does the funder want to hear? Read the chapter. But this particular quote from Judith Crotty, I will never forget. Nothing is worse than getting a cold application and not knowing where it came from, even if it is perfectly written. Interestingly, this last winter, we did a cohort with about 50 people that were Indigenous organizations in Canada and Alaska Native tribes in Alaska, and they're all leading these amazing Indigenous-led projects and research initiatives, and they're trying to figure out how to master grant writing. They were so cool. It was the most amazing cohort I've probably ever had. I loved it. But we had a funder panel, which I can also link below, where we had all of these panelists that typically fund these types of organizations on the phone, asking them a lot of questions. And I tell you, they were like a broken record about almost, the application is almost like a formality. We want to get to know you. We want to trust you to be someone that is a safe vehicle for handling our investment in your organization and knowing you'll use it responsibly and the difference that you'll make with it. So if you think that it's just you putting together a perfect proposal, you got to be reaching out and building those relationships. And it doesn't have to be like salesy and inauthentic. Like, just reach out and ask some questions, get to know them as a person, and do it from a place of authenticity. Okay, tip number 3, debrief with the funder, win or lose. Now, I know how much more fun it is to not, basically you won the grant, you're good, right? Carry on. Or you lost the grant, and frankly, that feels terrible and you don't want to contact them, but do. One time, so I always followed up, and my favorite grants to debrief with are federal grants, with the exception of the Department of Transportation. They give you nothing useful at all. Like, it's a terrible debrief. But with other programs, you literally get a scorecard, and it will tell you this is how you scored. It takes 15 points in, for instance, Project Team. You scored a 12. Okay, what do we need to do to go from 12 to 15? And that's been game-changing, where one year we weren't successful with a specific grant application we did. I got that scorecard. I saw, oh gosh, we were so close. We just needed to shore up a couple areas in the narrative. We were able to reapply the next year. And, obviously it was a fraction of the cost. The rest of the proposal was good, and then it was funded. So it can often be just that little itty bit that's needed that they want you to strengthen, and then you can be funded. Okay, point number 4, get trained. Now, this might sound self-serving because, heck, I am an educator for those that want to get into grant writing, but I'm telling you, it makes a big difference no matter what it is that you want to learn, so that you're not making all those stupid mistakes that can take years and years and years to accumulate up enough experience to have basically learned the hard way, right? So look at them, research. There's lots of options for you. If ours isn't the right one, that's all good. But we have 2 programs, right? So it's Grant Writing from Start to Funded, a self-study online course for those of you that just want to go for it, hit it, and execute with the material that's provided. For those of you that are looking for more, you want community, you want coaching calls, you want all the stuff that goes with it, you can go watch that, the details on the website, etc. But that's a great option for you. I want you to look, do your homework, see what's right, but get trained. Don't try to do it the hard way. I have approached doing the hard way pretty much for everything in my life. Like, if anyone is a DIYer, it's yours truly. And I'll tell you what, I'm finally breaking that habit, because when I do go get help, my rate of progress and acceleration is exponential than the doing it myself pace and way. And so if that's you, really, I seriously recommend doing your homework, figuring out how you can get trained so that you'll feel confidence in your ability to do this and make less mistakes. All right, now tip number 5, build peer community support. This is big. The weird thing about grant writing that you might not realize is that it's actually surprisingly lonely. And the reason it's lonely is for 2 reasons. If you're a consultant, you have to be the perceived authority and subject matter expert. So you can't really ask questions that you might have all the time, because it can really undermine your authority. When you are a grant writer in an organization, a lot of times you are the person that knows the most. So you don't have someone else that you can go ask. And that can feel very isolating when one little question in a little sticky situation, asking a peer can remedy that right away, versus feeling really isolated and alone. And so finding a community of peers is super duper important. I think that is truly the magic within the collective. Our community resides in Circle. It's a platform that's sort of like if Slack and Facebook made an ethical ad-free baby. It's that, and it's amazing because we have different channels based on where you're at in your journey, revenue-wise, and as your progress through the course. So that allows you to go and connect with people. A lot of things are happening too, because you can see the member database. See who's in your area. Organize a meetup. That happens all the time. Like, I want you forming connections, and it's happening anyway, so that you have someone that can edit your narrative. Find an accountability buddy. Just know who else you can ask to talk to, right? It makes a really big difference, so that you're not fumbling through this world alone like I did. I did not have really anyone I could ask. And a lot of times I was in way over my head, and it's a crappy feeling, and it kind of takes the joy out of it than when you have someone that can just help you move forward quickly. So that tip is build a peer community group around you. Okay, final tip is this. Recognize what is in your control and what is not. I'm sure my sister would not really appreciate me telling this story, but I have 3 younger sisters, and one of them was visiting, the youngest one. She lives in Alaska with me, but she was visiting another sister that's in Colorado, and she made the road trip home, and she didn't tell my sister that she'd made it. And so sister in Colorado was losing her mind, completely freaking out. I mean, she was like down the spiral staircase in a huge way, right? I mean, losing it. And I was like, girl, Zoe's okay. She's fine. But Sissy too could not see that, right? So that's what often happens in this world. You get super hung up on like trying to control every aspect of the grant writing process. And I know that because grant writers tend to be kind of control freaks. I get that. It's kind of part of our characteristic traits. It works to our benefit because then it means we're very detail oriented and we deliver great work, but it can also hurt us. And so it's really important when you are kind of fretting about something, whether am I going to let this whole organization down, blah, 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 is write out what can I control, what can't I control. What can you control? I can put forth the best proposal that I know I am capable of writing. Yes. What can't you control? Politics of the organization that preceded you even getting there, right? What can I control? Requesting a debrief with the funder, right? So there's all of these things that are in your control, and I really need you to work on separating those and surrendering the pieces that you can't control. And I'll tell you, I know it's hard. I've struggled with this as well, but the more I've learned to really embrace what's the difference between what we can and can't control, wow, it has led to so much less stress in my life, and I want that for you too as well. Okay, with that, let's do a quick recap of the top 6 things to do to reduce your stress if you're feeling all of this stress around, am I going to win the grant? What do I do if I don't? Number 1, develop the funding strategy roadmap. Number 2, build relationships with funders. 3, always debrief with them, win or lose. Number 4, get trained in grant writing. Number 5, build your peer community group. And number 6, keep in mind what you can control and what you can't. All right, hope you found that video helpful. If you've enjoyed it, hit the like and subscribe button. Throw in the comments any questions you have or ideas or other videos you want us to cover. Other than that, hope to see you inside the Grant Writing Unicorn Collective, where we'd love to have you to answer more. All right, that's it. See ya.